The views and opinions expressed on any program are those of the producers and/or the persons appearing on the program, and do not necessarily reflect the views and opinions of FRC Media, Bristol Community College, or the City of Fall River.
Well, hello. Welcome to Spindle City Straight Talk. I'm Chip.
And I'm CJ.
And it's Monday, another week in the Riv, and a big Monday it is, because as we see the article we have here, group loses bid to denied recall victory, but promises another fight. Well, I'm just going to touch one thing in this article. It says that Corporation Counsel Joseph Macy, who represented Korea, 4 other officials, he's very gratified with the result, and the argument he made before. Well, congratulations, but you shouldn't have been representing them, because you are also a representative of the people. It's my opinion. But since this is the news, I would like to, I think it's only, as we did on the last show, good to kind of clarify some things, because first of all, there may be some people who signed that petition who did it expressly because they dislike Jazel Correa. And as I've said before, I cannot speak for anybody else on that document. This is about process to me. I didn't have anything against Will Flanagan when we attempted to have him succeed himself in spite of the language. It was worth a shot, because I truly believe in the Constitution that says we are the government. And all these rulings basically fly in the face of this. So I'm going to just read a couple of excerpts from this, and CJ, feel free to weigh in at any time. Of course, this is about the injunction, and it says, we don't need to know what percentages he was elected by and what percentages voted against him, but this is verbatim here. In 2017, Fall River adopted by citywide vote a new charter. The process involved numerous public hearings and meetings of the duly elected Charter Commission, both on the charter itself and public information meetings on the content of the proposed charter. The 2017 charter specifically repealed special legislation that governed the manner in which recall elections for Fall River were to be conducted. The special legislation contained words that expressly allowed the subject of the recall to seek re-election on the same ballot as the recall vote. In fact, that very issue was the subject of litigation in 2014, the last time Fall River conducted a recall election. Specifically, the special legislation stated in pertinent part, quote, "If then re-elected, he shall continue in office," unquote, and, quote, "If not re-elected in the recall election, he shall be deemed removed upon qualification of his successor," unquote. However, the 2017 charter, not special legislation, now governs the procedure for the recall election. So let me clarify that, because it doesn't seem to make much sense. It basically said he could succeed himself with that, the way that was interpreted by the courts, which, you know, and that's the problem. Therein lies the rub, as the Bard said. We knew what it said. We were the people who, I was one of the people who brought the litigation in 2014. We knew what had to be corrected. We appeared at those public meetings, information meetings, and spoke on numerous parts of the charter. And we were ignored by both the charter commissioners, and the voters bought their bill of goods that this consultant and these people had put together an absolutely spectacular charter. But that's not true. So this is about process. It's about being represented in our government. This is why I continue to insist that we should be dealing with this on constitutional grounds, because if I hit the megabucks, I will pledge here on camera, I will devote at least $1 million to litigating the right of the people to run its government that is stipulated in our Constitution. We are the government. We are the government. And for them to throw out 8.8 because they say a measure is a governmental action, I submit to you, and I will submit to the Supreme Court and let them tell me different, that our petition, our recall was a governmental action because we are the government. And Article 5 of part of the first clearly states that whether legislative, executive, or judicial, they are at all times our substitutes. So I'm not going to have, and I have to agree, I will abide by the law until it's changed. I'm not going to have a judge tell me make that interpretation, that semantic interpretation, which continues throughout this document, that we are not the government, that election was run by the government. We are the government. Not him, not his interpretation. He's our agent also, judicially. So, but you got to live with it. So, Jazel Correa's the mayor. But again, with me, this is about process. Now the discussion section. The plaintiffs contended there is a significant difference in the 2017 charter and the repealed special legislation. I did not agree, but you have to plead something. The new charter, according to the plaintiff's argument, removed the wording that expressly authorized the subject of a recall election to be a candidate and place his or her name as a candidate for election on the same ballot as a recall. The plaintiff argues that the 2017 charter prevents the office holder who is the subject of a recall election from being a candidate, or more specifically, from being his own successor. Now remember that word. This is the big word, successor. And in essence, Correa should not have been placed on a ballot. And then they go on and stipulate, then it says, it talks about that why? As previously issued here, whether the 2017 prevents a current office holder who is the subject of a recall from being a candidate, or more specifically stated, from being on the ballot if elected from being a successor. The section of Charter 2017, the recall election, is 8-5. The plaintiff does not assert that those mandates were not followed. The particular section at issue is, and I'll just read the highlight. If recalled, the office holder shall continue in office for the remainder of the unexpired term, subject to the recall as charter provides. If recalled, the office holder shall be deemed removed upon qualification of the successor elected to the office. Now here comes the big one. The plaintiff contends that this provision was intended to prevent the office holder who is the subject from being a candidate. In other words, the plaintiff argues that in this case, Carrera is not eligible to be a candidate for election for mayor because he cannot succeed himself. Now here it comes, everybody. However, the term successor was not newly inserted, and in fact was used in a special legislation. While the ordinary meaning of successor is one that succeeds to an office of another, or who replaces or follows a predecessor, Black's Law Dictionary, in context of 2017 charter, and specifically 8-5, successor, is not directed at a particular individual, but rather the next elected person, whoever it may be. So there you go. There you go. They took out the word. We have a judge that said because successor meant one thing, and something that was repealed, it now has a fundamental issue here that it doesn't even comply with the law dictionary's definition of successor. So it abrogates the actual meaning, because that's how important language is. Not intent, language. I disagree with those types of rulings because, hey, you know, to me, if somebody killed 28 people and some cop didn't Mirandize him properly, he should not get off. But this is the problem. We are the people. We are the government. And these types of things, you know, yeah, we lost the injunction, and it's going to trial, and there'll be more stuff like this. But this is what I think we really need as citizens, as people, as voters, to show how important it is that we throw all these clowns out that do these types of things and take back control of our government. And we can only do that when we all vote. Then if we all vote and it stays the same, well, shame on us. I will still disagree, but I will live with it. This entire thing was an outrage. And he goes on to say that basically they should have said it, as we said. But we've been fighting this fight a long time, and I'll continue to fight as long as I draw a breath, because I believe the majority should rule. And I've been on a losing end plenty of times. You take a vote, the majority wins, you live with it. You don't have to like it, but you do. So there's no sour grapes here. The only sour grapes I have is with the Charter Commission. And this judge clearly stated it in his opinion. There were public hearings. There were people who opposed this. There were people who told them what to do. There were people who told them they had to be specific, and they still didn't do it. And the result is this suit was filed because of the Charter Commission's inability to pay attention to the people who elected them. First, by hiring a consultant and doing an entire new charter when we asked for a charter review, and secondly, by not having a consultant bright enough to understand the legal ramifications. And if you don't, get a lawyer. We're not lawyers, and we told you so. That's the problem. That's all I got. You know, that's all. If this is posted, you can read it. But I think it's really critical to look at that section. It says that fundamentally, if you say crap, it doesn't mean crap. If you said crap in something that was repealed before, and when you're trying to make it a law again, because the definition of crap still goes back to the original interpretation, unless you're very clear that you actually mean real crap.
But you know, that's the problem. They didn't have a lawyer doing this. They had the administration in every hearing, which the city should not have been involved in that at all. No member of any administration should have been involved in that.
That's right. It's a document that governs their governance.
Exactly. And this is where the problem was. You had charter commissioners kissing butt. They wanted positions on commissions and boards and task force and here, this, that, and the other thing. And they wanted to protect their own whimsical wants and needs.
And some of them were actually on boards.
Yes.
That were on a commission. They were on boards, you know, this is, and we look at it. We had politicians' sons, board members, and the only, you know, well, there was only one person who, and he's on a board. He was on, I believe, Dan Robillard was still on the Disability Commission.
Yep.
But he was there because he was an advocate for disabled people. But, you know, everybody, the John B's and everybody on either side of this issue, and you have every right, but please don't run around saying you won. You know, the people lost. This is another situation where the people do not have a voice. They have fundamentally eliminated the people from our government. The lunatics have taken over the asylum. That's why this case probably won't prevail, because the same people who made this interpretation that successor doesn't mean successor are going to be doing the same at the trial. But the reality is, it still has to be said. If you disagree with the law, you fight it. And then if you lose, you have only one alternative, to change it. And that's my point. My point is, learn. How many times have we told you to educate yourself, pay attention, listen to the opposing view? We opposed this charter from the get-go. We opposed this charter during its formation. I spoke at more than one charter commissioner meeting in opposition of numerous parts of this charter. I advocated for a vote against this charter. So I did what I feel was right, and now you people who got conned and get conned every time by their marketing strategies, if you don't like the way the government's acting, remember, you are the government, but you're only the government when you show up.
Well, what's very interesting is not that I take any joy in this, but I told you so, I told you so, I told you so. And, you know, that's the problem. These people don't understand everything that we've been very much for, and they voted against it. Guess what? We were right. Everything we voted against, and we advocated for that position, we were, you know, they voted for it anyways, and guess what? We're right, just like with this charter. The problem is the language is too ambiguous. And Mike Mioza and Chris Bartley and other charter commissioners are going around saying, but the intent was, the intent was, the intent was. The only thing that the courts are going to do is look at what's in the four corners of this document. That's it. If it's not written down, it's not there. And the worst part about it was a charter commissioner asked for it to be written in there. And they gave it for the consultant to write it in there, and the consultant didn't do it.
Well,
and the charter commissioners didn't follow up on it.
Well, if he doesn't do what he's told, he should have been fired. But while you're on that, I will read one more line from this, which says it all. Forget about it. As I said, in labor law, intent is there. But as he said, the four corners of the document, that's right. However, that's not the way it should be. That's why I was always objected on constitutional grounds.
Right.
That's why I feel 8.8 does apply, because we are the government. You can't say that that doesn't count because it's a governmental action when we're the government. It conflicts with, and I truly believe when you truly say what's a governmental action and we're the governor, our initiative petition for a recall was a governmental action because we are the government. But four corners of the document, strict interpretations, that's what screws everybody. And that's why murderers get off, and that's why people get screwed on things. But this is the line that's really important from the judge. If the drafters of the 2017 charter had intended this interpretation to be so, they could have expressly stated it. So there you go. That's about the word successor and clarifying it by saying he can't run. And they should have said it, because as I said, you know, your intent and $1.98 or maybe 99 cents can get you a coffee at Cumberland Farms on Wednesdays. Because that's what your intent counts for, because you're going to have a judge make four-cornered interpretations in a very myopic scenario. He's looking at that. He even drew from a repealed law, which I feel is intent. So I don't know how he can not take our intent. See, this is again why I have problems with our judicial system. And I think that, like I said, I will make a promise that if I hit the Powerball, and all of you who don't want, you want the government to remain the same, you can root against me winning, but I will commit at least $1 million to fighting these kind of things in court. Because I don't know how a judge can say successor doesn't mean successor because it appeared in the other one, and now we have to carry the intent of a law that's been repealed into a 2017 charter. But hey, he's the judge. Here come the judge. So whatever he ruled now will prevail until overturned by either a court, a Supreme Court, or the voters get to the point where they'll elect people who will do it. So,
but here's the problem. The charter can't be changed until 2022. And here's the big problem.
Unless it goes on constitutional grounds and it's struck down as unconstitutional.
True.
This type of proceeding will never overturn this crap show. That's why I continue to say this should be argued on constitutional grounds, because if they rule that unconstitutional, well, then we can deal with a new charter.
See, but the thing is, like I said, in 2022 is when they're going to be reviewing this charter and making changes. The problem is...
Oh, who's reviewing it, by the way? Who's
political appointment.
Who's the chairman?
No, he's reviewing the city ordinances with the charter right now. But again, their position's going to be to put one of those charter commissioners back on there who created this fiasco.
Oh, no, but who's in the charter of you?
Oh, right, no, it's Mike Mioza.
Wow.
The man who drafted this.
Yeah, and a bunch of other political hacks. So,
right.
As I said, look, I'm not blaming them. Look, Joe Macy can be thrilled about his pleading. We knew what he was going to plead. He satisfied the legal requirements by getting 300 signatures. He has a right to run, and it was ambiguous, and so we pretty well figured that. But now it's in writing. So is it a loss? Yeah. But is it a win? It's a de facto win, because now you know what you got to do. Even though we told you not to vote for this charter, even though we told you it had to be clarified, you didn't do it, and these are the consequences. So when you're writing letters to the editor blaming everybody and saying we had to spend so much money with this election and this confusing election, let's put the blame squarely where it belongs. It does not belong on Jason Correa. He has every right to try to keep his job. I'm not going to argue with that right. He has every right to try to stay where he is. And he has every right to go to court and defend himself. So the people who are to blame for this, it's as clear as it can be. The charter and the people, except for Commissioner Dan Robillard, who voted against virtually everything and filed a minority opinion and told them they should fix this, they're to blame. I don't care what their intent was. If I intend to make a left and I make a right and I crash into a building, you can't say I didn't hit the building. Because if I say I intended to turn left and I forgot which was left and which was right, it was my intent not to hit that building. Well, nobody intends to do it. There are a lot of people that go to court and try to plead, I didn't really intend to create that damage. So forgive me if I'm not buying that argument. It's like the woman in Rhode Island who just got DUI'd again, and about 7 years ago she killed 2 people, and she's still driving drunk. Let's see what she gets, because that's what's wrong. Our legal system is not a criminal justice system. That's what it began as, but it is no longer a criminal justice system. This is a system of rehabilitation, victims' rights, and adjudicating everything except the real intent, justice. You can't let murderers out if they don't on technicalities. You can't be quashing the majority of the people's will on legal opinions and political machinations. That's why I feel none of this. But you got to fight the fight. It's part of it. None of this will ever succeed. The only way we'll ever succeed is by making them enforce the Constitution of this Commonwealth that says clearly, we are the government. So, forgive me if I'm a little irritated, but every time I see judgments like this, not only in things that affect me, but in things that don't affect you. This is the society of victimization. I'm a victim. You hate this guy. It's like now they said no collusion. Now all the Dems are all screaming and yelling. They want to see the whole report. And the Attorney General's already said he's going to give you everything that he can legally give you. But they just can't. It's all about partisan politics. It's all about political agendas. And the courts are the same, because every one of those judges got appointed by politicians.
Exactly.
And so does it disturb me? You're damn right it does. Because, you know, I'm a taxpayer, I'm a citizen, and my Constitution says I'm the boss. And it really pisses me off when I can't be.
I hear you. I hear you. You know, it makes for an interesting scenario, because, again, we blame the Charter Commission for a lot of this. We really do. And, again, blame is pointed where it belongs.
Yeah, justifiably.
Right, because, you know, they keep saying the intent was, the intent was, the intent was. And as I said before, the intent doesn't get you a cup of coffee. Yeah. Okay? The intent's not going to go anywhere. Yeah. It's what did you write in there? Why didn't you write it in there? Why? Because probably one of them, or two of them, or three of them, or all of them were approached by somebody in administration or some elected official and said, don't put that in there, because then it's going to be too clear and I won't be able to run if I'm recalled.
And you're right, CD. And let me clarify that. I said I don't like not being a boss. And I don't mean I'm the boss that you have to do everything I say. But as I said before, if somebody gets 50.01 of the vote, whether I voted for him or not, I agree that the people have spoken. Majority. The majority of people doesn't mean that we always get our way. What it means is that the people have spoken. But the people have to educate themselves. I accounted an actual event in one of my union meetings where 52 people abstained and 3 people voted in favor of a motion that was not in the best interest of themselves and the union. We had no liability in that. It was a personal lawsuit that somebody wanted to get paid, had his expenses paid. Our own attorney, who's an extremely good attorney, said we weren't liable. I explained it to the body, and the body was afraid because the 3 people who voted for it were high-ranking officers. They figured there would be retribution. So that's why everybody doesn't particularly, they didn't like some of my style, but I could have overturned that vote. The 4 chair officers that were sitting with me at the table during that meeting, I could have had them vote against it. It would have been 3-3. I could have passed the gavel and broke the tie and not spend union money. But I chose to say, if you cowards are going to sit there and let 52 people are going to remain silent while 3 people spend your dues, so be it. Because I'm not going to do it. If you can't do it, or you don't have the courage to do it, I'm running the meeting, and I will let the majority of 3, when there are 55 people there, and that's to get back to that point we made before about people saying, well, you know, not everybody shows up. And as I said before, if you don't show up, you vote for whatever side wins. You have acquiesced. You have agreed by your silence. So I don't want to hear it. But I'll tell you what, I live by any decision of a majority. I've lived my whole life living with majority decisions. In a union hall, the majority rule. You take a vote. If the vote doesn't come out your way, well, that's the way it is. You've got to close ranks and deal with it. But you know, this kind of stuff, it really it doesn't take. I'm angry most of the time when I just observe politics, especially now what's going on a national level. But it gets me even more angry when every time I have to go to court again and read opinions like this, because it drives me bananas because of the fact that, you know, these people are making rulings that affect people, and yet they deal with such finite technicalities. That's what the law has evolved to from a criminal justice system. And in reality, like I said, we are the people, so we have to change it. And if you don't get out and vote and put people in who will change it, welcome to your new world.
That's it. And the world that's not going to be governed by you.
Stay angry, everybody. We'll see you on Wednesday.
Thanks for watching. Have a great day.